You are listening to Third House Podcast, Astrology, Witchcraft, Creativity, and Life, with your host, Brittany Pastuhov, an astrologer and life coach specializing in confidence for women. I'm just going to do a quick update on Third House Podcast for the next 2 weeks of the full moon, since the Aries lunar cycle got a bit shifted due to the Aries new moon having such powerful energy. I'm sure others experienced that as well, but I found that at the time of the new moon, there were other things in my life just taking priority over this podcast. So I apologize, but I wanted to jump in with an update halfway through this lunar cycle, review a couple of things, and really focus more on the full moon that's coming and the rest of the lunar cycle to get back on track, because I'm just getting back to my normal routine here, if there is such a thing in my life. So the Aries new moon, as we're looking at it now on the screen, on the video screen, it was a pile up in Aries. It was a full stellium because we have Neptune and Saturn there already. And then there's also Mercury, Mars in Aries, with Mars ruling Aries, Chiron in there. If you count Chiron, which I do, this new moon was very close to Chiron. So a lot of different energies competing in the same sign to be first, and a lot of pushing momentum, which I was really feeling like this momentum to just get things done and get it out there. But I wasn't able to push through because Chiron, as Chiron reminded me, trying to do things fast isn't always worth it. And there are other things that take precedence over work or different areas of your life that sort of come to the forefront at different times. So if you experience things like that around this new moon, it makes sense. There's a ton of Aries happening. Also, Uranus is at a critical point in Taurus at 29 degrees, about to shift into Gemini, which by now, as I'm recording this on April 29th, Uranus has shifted into Gemini. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about where the planets are now as of this recording and what's coming up in the next couple of weeks. Okay, so that new moon was on the 17th, and just to go through, we had Venus and Uranus in close conjunction in Taurus, really bringing it, for Venus being the ruler of Taurus. We had Taurus season start with the sun in Taurus, and Venus being the ruler of Taurus, being with Uranus here, just really amplified that last stretch of Uranus and Taurus, especially for the Taurian people who have been having revelations and awakenings for the past 8 years or so. And now Uranus is in Gemini as of April 25th. And you can see Venus also entered Gemini with Uranus, kind of escorting him out of her home sign of Taurus, escorting it out. Uranus sort of gender neutral to me, and bringing those awakenings into Gemini, into the mental, into the air, into the ether. So this is about to be really interesting times, but different than Uranus in Taurus, which was really shaking up economies, really shaking up any kind of stability that people were feeling, really having to do a lot with revolutions and changes for women, but also like a lot of backlash against change from people who, because Taurus doesn't necessarily like change, from people who wanted things to stay the same or go back to sort of this fantasy or surreal vision of what was in patriarchy, in white supremacy. So we had a lot of that, and that's not necessarily ending, but our awakenings and revelations and the disruptions are changing in nature as Uranus enters Gemini, and the Taurus people I know are rejoicing because that was just a lot to go through. When Uranus goes through your home sign or the sign of your ascendant, the rising sign of your chart, it is a huge awakening. It is a huge series of changes. It can feel like never-ending change if it's really hitting something personal in your chart. And so for the mutable people, especially the Geminis, but also Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, you're starting to get that series of change rumbling through your chart with Uranus and Gemini to different degrees depending on your personal chart. And that's something that I can look at with you, how Uranus and Gemini would really affect you. But in this forecast, we'll look at kind of the overall themes of Uranus and Gemini. So I'm going to take it to today and where the planets are now. So we had April 29th, that's the time I'm recording this podcast now, we do have Uranus in the sign of Gemini. So Uranus in Taurus, just to recap, since 2018, revolutionizing the economy, food systems, the physical world, not necessarily for the better, because we think of revolution as like somehow for the better or for the future. We have this idea of progress, but just changing things, shaking stuff up. And then Uranus in Gemini, I was predicting and you can find my 2026 forecast where I make these predictions. And in 2025, we had a preview of this from July through November in 2025. So revolutionary new questions, youthful changes or shocks or innovations with the youth or by the youth, around children and youth, progress for unconventional expressions of gender and sexuality. But I also was like listening to the news this morning, and the speaker was speaking about a panic about trans people, which is sad, which is awful. But like this moral panic around gender, like, is also maybe part of it. Misinformation is at like a wild high. I would have said that in 2018, but I can't believe where we are now with it, with AI. So there's a lot of misinformation being spread about gender, about trans people in general, and just kind of like a panic. Those who want to like push propaganda like can easily do so now. And so there is that sense of like, now in Gemini, the sign ruled by Mercury, the sign of communication, Uranus can really play trickster and really disrupt things. But in a positive way, Uranus can also reveal and awaken through communication and different communications methods too. I've been seeing a lot recently of the girlies are building cyber deck content. I don't know if you've seen this, girls. Usually young women or actually girls taking like Raspberry Pis and building their own little computers, their own little messaging systems in cute little containers, building cyber decks, taking the technological tools that we have and really taking it into their own hands to build the hardware, the components of it, and code the software so that it's not all being coded for them. And you do see women and girls often like being the ones who revolutionize, who take on a new social media and make it what it is, and create things like Tumblr and create things like different. I don't even know what the young girls are doing right now with technology, except I've been exposed to that content. But they're the creative drivers of innovation often, and they don't necessarily get credit for it. So we see that more with Uranus and Gemini, hopefully with more credit. And obviously not only young women, but gender and sexuality being important here with Uranus and Gemini, different expressions kind of coming out and different reactions or responses to that. Developments and forms of communication and language. Certainly, like I've seen a lot of like, encrypted messaging systems or like build your own. I don't know what kind of algorithm I'm on right now. It's a very techie one, more techie than I actually am. But like, build your own kind of like communication system that doesn't have to use Wi-Fi or cellular, that communicates via radio signal, via satellite. Like that's very Uranus and Gemini kind of developments. People going analog, moving away from the past 10 years of social media and smartphone use, and trying to reconnect with in-person communication, kind of an awakening or revelation around that. And I don't think that means that like if you're on social media as an entrepreneur or whatever, that is over. I just think that these are interesting developments in society with communication, that we're going to see a lot more technological developments in the next 7 to 8 years regarding ways in which we communicate. Shocking new insights and knowledge in general, rapid learning in general, but also, as in World War II, code-breaking inventions and progress, computing advancements. It was especially in encryption, also, of course, AI and robotics, and we do have that Uranus-Pluto trine now that Uranus is in an air sign, so that's very important. We also have a Uranus return for the U.S., which the last one was during World War II, and we know that we are currently in a war that probably will develop into something bigger, so that's very unfortunate piece of history. But as I said, predicting isn't hard if you look at what humans are doing and what they have done and imagine that they don't change it. So unfortunately, since the people in power have not changed that dynamic, the predictions are accurate. However, for your individual life, There's also the possibility with Uranus and Gemini of very fast quantum leaps. This is like Knight of Swords, extremely fast energy with Mercury, with Uranus and Gemini, the Mercury ruled sign. And then I said disorder, chaos, wild tricksters in general, but we'll get to like why this time also holds a lot of opportunities for people. So you can listen to that whole forecast. Also, like the stuff about the United States planetary returns, the Uranus return, and the Pluto-Uranus cycle continuing in my 2026 and 2025 forecasts. And we're going to get to the part where you are here. So we have our full moon coming. It's May 1st. It's a Beltane full moon. I love this. It's at 11 degrees of Scorpio. It is on May 1st. I love, it's a holiday for magic. It's a holiday associated with the Fae. It's a holiday associated with sex and sexuality. It's fun. And there's a full moon this year. So the full moon on Beltane is a beautiful time for magic, especially that day, but also the night before, which is also a like magical night, Walpurgisnacht in Germany, the witch's night, or after the exact lunation. I usually give a period of 3 days for the full moon, even though the forecast will always list a specific exact time of the moon opposite the sun for the most fullness. So this Scorpio moon is ruled by Mars in Aries, which is a little bit further from Saturn at this point, separating from that conjunction with Saturn, applying to conjunction with Mercury. We have Mercury and Chiron together. So we still have this Aries pile up. So we still have all that Aries energy, and it's ruled by Mars in Aries. So she's dynamic, she's moving, she's shaking, she's making things happen. The trines to Jupiter and the North Node in Pisces indicate an ease of manifestation as long as you're taking action and really see through any false blockages. It's about owning your power. That's what Scorpio is always about at the root of it. It's about owning power, transforming through challenge. And Beltane is one of those powerful times like Samhain when the apparent walls between worlds come down and it's easier to see, it's easier to affect things with magic, and the full moon just makes all of that more potent. So we also have that Mercury conjunct Chiron in Aries. So Chiron being medicine for the wound, and Mercury sort of being the carrier or bringer of things. Like what kind of medicine can you find at the Scorpio full moon? In all of the hubbub, the dynamism, like all the stuff happening, the conflict, what kind of medicine can you find there? And it's probably going to be strong medicine with Chiron and Aries, but we have to take stock of where our heads are and remember that we are magic and remember that we can affect things and we can affect the timeline, and we can affect how different world events play out, even as individuals or together collectively. So this full moon's really, really potent, and I love that for us. And then the day after, on May 2nd, we have Mercury entering Taurus. No, let me just move it ahead. There, we have Mercury entering Taurus. This is the planet of communication, of commerce, a psychopomp, of poetry and literature, but also tricksters and magic, of astrology, of youth, ideas, and quickness in a sign that is slow. Planet of quickness and a slow sign. Stability, sustainability, perseverance, prosperity that grows and stays, pleasure, including aesthetic pleasure, earth. I always say rooting, grounding, growing when I talk about Taurus. I think with Mercury and Taurus, we keep it simple. We notice and sense these signs of spring and appreciate. Think before speaking, speak slowly and seldom for wisdom, especially with all of that Aries energy in the air. That can be a really good medicine. But also Mercury and Taurus is really wonderful, and Taurus season in general, for commerce and money. Combining Venus's sign of economics with Mercury's gift for commercial activity and connecting people. And following Uranus's exit from this sign, which will make Taurus feel more stable again. Now that Uranus is left Taurus, we get more of that stable growth, and not so much like shifting, not knowing what's going to happen, Bitcoin situation. Okay. Not that that's like the end of Bitcoin. I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying like There's not this feeling of like, oh no, everything's in the physical world is shifting, realities are shifting before me. There's a little more feeling of control over stability with Uranus out of Taurus, recognizing also that Uranus is always somewhere, and in Gemini will be changing different things. Okay, May 4th, with Mars square Jupiter, it's a great day for action. Okay, we still have Mars in Aries. Mars in Aries, if good for anything, is really good for taking charge and taking action, for leadership, for just doing the thing. Been thinking too long about a thing that you really want to do the thing. You're not going to be perfect at it. More and more time thinking about it isn't going to change the outcome for you. More practice might, but also sometimes you just have to do the thing. So Jupiter Mars square on May 4th could prompt you to do something. Also with that moon, Jupiter ruled moon in Sagittarius trine Mars, like just asking you to take a leap, have an adventure. May 5th, we have Mercury at 5 degrees of Taurus. May 5th. Mercury in Taurus square Pluto in Aquarius. So stability, as I said, mentioning Uranus and Gemini, is relative to the times. We're all feeling the weight of history and the speed and depth of change happening. I want you to take a moment to imagine how good could the transits get for you. Because I think astrology, and including myself, has a tendency towards warnings and fear sometimes, but what you experience individually is often heavily dependent on your perception and expectations of the world and your alignment with the outcome you desire. Some of that comes more easily to those who have like a ton of trines in their chart. They're like, yeah, things are easier than people say. I don't understand why they're all so upset. And some of that might come harder to those of us who have to learn how to change our perception despite the evidence to the contrary, the evidence in the past. But what we experience, and I have experienced this personally, is very heavily dependent on our perception and our expectations. For example, in relationships, people who have successful long-term relationships where they stay in love regard each other with consistent positive regard. They consistently see, and researchers have researched this, I'm sorry, I don't have a source, but they consistently see the other person in a positive light. Resentment and bitterness and complaints about the person that overwhelm the positive regard and turn it into a more critical viewpoint of the partner. If that doesn't change, if that's how the partners see each other, that relationship is most likely not going to last much longer, because that is kind of that resentment is one of the death knells of a relationship. So consistent positive regard, it's not just that the two people are more in love or that the two people are better suited to one another. That could be true too, but that they're choosing to regard each other positively. Like, even despite sometimes evidence to the contrary, right? You could focus on how your partner leaves their socks on the floor all the time or whatever, but you could also focus on the coffee they bring you in the morning or their smile or something nice that they did. So paying more attention to the positive, and our brains are not wired for that. It takes effort to pay attention more to the positive side of someone, is in effect a way to maintain a relationship. I'm not saying lie about it. I'm not saying like ignore red flags, but I am saying if you consistently try to regard a partner or a friend in a positive light, it is more likely that they will also regard you in a positive light, and that you will be able to work out conflicts in a more fruitful way. So consistent positive regard is an example of our perception influencing the outcome of events, because there are different ways that you could choose to perceive it, and sometimes it really is a choice that leads to a different expectation and a different outcome. Mercury square Pluto. So just a little bit on kind of the Mercury, because there's a lot of Mercury aspects in the next 2 weeks. Mercury thoughts, Mercury perceptions, and especially Uranus and Gemini perceptions of how things are. May 6th, Pluto stations retrograde in Aquarius. So maybe we're reviewing some of the big changes that have happened since Pluto entered Aquarius into 2023. We're at 5 degrees now, the first 5 degrees of Aquarius over a 20-year period. And then Pluto also had gone back into Capricorn and then entered for a longer period starting November 2024. So going back to that date, November 2024, going back to some of the societal restructuring and major innovations or innovations in air quotes, because I'm not so sure about Gen AI and LLMs right now, and seeing more truth around what's happening. And it did note that when Pluto entered Aquarius in 2023, we had a Silicon Valley bank bailout. So I am seeing a potential bubble there as well. Not that they won't get bailed out, because they totally might, but let's hope they don't. Okay, May 10th, the Sun in Taurus sextile Jupiter in Cancer. So we have some nice like Taurus season energy with the Sun and Mercury in Taurus. We've got Venus in Gemini. Venus in Gemini loves to just like try some variety, try new things, get a breath of fresh air, socialize a little more. I feel like in Vermont, everyone comes outside after the winter when it's finally sunny and green and we start talking to each other again. Not that we weren't before, but it's just a long winter of it getting dark really early and people wanting to stay in their homes. And then spring comes and people start wanting to be outside longer. So May 10th, and that's like Venus and Gemini kind of energy and also Taurus season energy. The Sun sextile Jupiter is nice. Like spring's here, there's awakening, expansion, abundance. Then we have Mercury sextile Jupiter on the 13th. So that kind of that whole week, May 10th is a Sunday, like through the 13th, is really nice because the Sun and Mercury are close together, and the sextile, the Jupiter in Cancer, is kind of cozy. And it's just a good kind of period for expansion, abundance, and enjoying oneself. And then we have a Mercury Cazimi, May 14th, where Mercury and the Sun will both be together at 24 degrees of Taurus at a point in time. So speaking of the planet of commercial activity in the sign of money, what do you want economically, financially, in terms of stability or increased growth? This is a good day to claim it. The Sun also, bringer of gold, grower of things, kind of the center of everything. And then Mercury having to do with commerce and communication and connection. Like, what are you looking for in the realm of financial prosperity, of money, but also like possessions, things, stability in life, things that might grow over time, investments. Claim that for that Mercury Cazimi if you're looking to do a little bit of magic or intention setting for that. And then the 16th, Mars conjunct Chiron. So we had Mercury conjunct Chiron. I talked about good medicine at the full moon on May 1st for Beltane. Now we have Mars there to really drive the point home. So whatever the wound is around action, around new beginnings, authenticity, leadership, or conflict, assertiveness and aggression, traits that are considered masculine in our culture, what is the medicine for you? There may be an action worth taking here at this point that has been percolating since like around May 1st, or even from the new moon in Aries, April 17th. Okay, and then we have our next new moon, May 16th. Which is at 25 degrees of Taurus. So the Taurus new moon in May is a lovely spring start for the next lunar cycle with a bit of a bang and a trickster element since it's conjunct Mercury in Taurus with an out of sign conjunction to Uranus and Gemini, still at the very beginning of Gemini, Mercury and the moon, like very end of Taurus here. So we are living in a time in history that, as in times before, will change the ways of the world significantly. And you have opportunities here with new technology, new ideas, new types of careers, scientific findings that are new, innovations of creatives and entrepreneurs. What will you do with this time period for yourself? If you already have your idea and you think it's the right time for it, start and build slowly with Taurus. And if you don't know, but you want something new in your life, this could be a time to ask for inspiration because you really are kind of at a cusp between times, and there's a lot of opportunity in those liminal moments. I hope you're well, and I'll come back with another lunar cycle forecast for you at the next new moon.